So Edison feels like he needs to tell the world about the dangers of alternating current. And he starts to attack not just AC, but Westinghouse. It starts in February of 1888. He publishes a booklet.
Oh,
This is the
very
first
sweet.
shot in the
Yeah.
War of the Currents. The booklet is called A Warning from the Edison Electric Light Company.
88 pages long.
88 pages long, a novella, let's say. And it lays out all the reasons AC is bad. Like, yes, the danger, but also Edison says he owns all the relevant patents, and so look out, I'm going to shut you down. And also he points out that still Westinghouse hasn't figured out how to reliably produce an AC motor. Like he's, working on producing Tesla's idea, but it's still in progress.
But the booklet is just the beginning. And imagine Edison, he sees the dangers. He fears that he is losing. And so he starts to, I would say, go too far, right? He secretly sponsors a guy who does these public displays that goes to, college campuses, as a public service announcement about deadly AC power. Harold Brown is his name. And he gets up on the stage and he reads a piece of paper about the virtues of DC and the dangers of AC. But all the time he's reading, the audience can see there is a dog cowering in a wooden crate. One time it was a 76-pound Newfoundland, right? So, this is why people have gathered. At one point, Brown turns his attention to the dog, to the Newfoundland. He hooks wires to its back legs and front paws, and he starts delivering jolts of AC and then DC power back and forth. And then eventually Brown administers a deadly jolt of AC, and the dog dies, proving, he says to the crowd, that, AC is more deadly. In secret, apparently, Edison let Brown do experiments on dogs and offering a reward for people to bring stray dogs to execute. But it wasn't, it was drawing crowds, but it wasn't quite working. So they start to use AC to electrocute calves, horses, just to show you, this is so dangerous. It can take down an animal larger than a human.
And then they go from animals to people. What happens is the state of New York, someone in the state government of New York decides that the state needs to modernize the way it executes convicted criminals. They'd been using hanging, death by hanging, which apparently goes wrong more than I thought. It's harder to hang people than I thought. And so somebody thinks, oh, well, electricity, that's this new, high-tech thing. Maybe that will work better. And so somebody writes to Edison, the Wizard of Menlo Park, the expert on electricity, and says, should we use electricity for state executions? And initially, Edison says, I oppose capital punishment. Don't bother me about this. Let me go invent things. But then he thinks about it some more, and he gets back to him, and he says, yes, electricity could work. Oh, and by the way, it should definitely be alternating current. And he even writes a letter where he says, the state should buy generators that are, quote, alternating machines manufactured principally in this country by George Westinghouse.
Says it by name. I can't believe it. And it does make me sad because I know Edison is the hero of the story, as he is for this whole series. And generally so far, we've seen him make, I would say, pretty moral decisions about his technology, right? And I mean, that's his whole vibe. I am bringing magic to the world to make everyone better off. And this is one of those instances where maybe he's talked himself into it, that this is the right thing to do. Maybe he thinks that I can't bully my way out of this with lawyers and patents. But this is the first time I've seen him really go after a competitor in a way that is vicious.
Yeah, it's bad, right? It's bad. New York takes Edison's advice. Of course, Westinghouse isn't going to sell the state of New York generators, but
God, no.
they actually buy used Westinghouse generators, and they build a few electric chairs, the first electric chairs. And on March 29th of 1889, a man named William Kemmler, who the New York Times calls an alcoholic vegetable peddler in the slums of Buffalo, he wakes up from a drinking binge, starts arguing with his girlfriend, Matilda Ziegler. accuses her of cheating on him. And then, according to the Times, quote, when the argument reached a peak, Kemmler calmly went to the barn, grabbed a hatchet, and returned to the house. And he killed Matilda Ziegler with the hatchet. It's pretty clear he did it. He says he did it. There's a lot of evidence that he did it. And he's convicted, and he's sentenced to death. And he's on his way to being the first person ever executed by the state with electricity. In fact, somebody invents the word electrocution right around this time. But of course, Westinghouse doesn't want this to happen. He doesn't want his machines killing a man in this very public way. And so Westinghouse hires a lawyer, this really famous lawyer, to defend Kemmler, to argue in particular that killing someone in the electric chair is cruel and unusual punishment. By the way, the electric chair was actually invented by a New York dentist who happened to be a Quaker. And he had seen someone accidentally touch a generator and be instantly killed. And he thought, oh, this would be a more humane alternative to hanging. So anyway, on July 23rd, 1889, Edison is called to testify in this case over whether killing someone in an electric chair is cruel and unusual punishment. Edison, as I mentioned in the previous episode, is largely deaf. He goes in to testify, and the lawyer basically has to yell into Edison's good ear so Edison can hear the question. The New York Times said you could hear it from the street, although maybe that's poetic license.
Here, we have the transcript here.
Yeah.
The lawyer says, I won't do the yelling part. Do you believe that an artificial current can be produced which will cause death instantly and painlessly when scientifically applied?
And Edison says, that is my firm belief. And then he adds, an alternating current of 1,000 volts pressure. So Edison testifies, and he gets what he really wants out of this, which is publicity, right? That's the whole point of this. It's not fundamentally about the electric chair. It's about making people afraid of AC power. And so the day after he testifies, his testimony runs in the New York Times under the headline, Testimony of the Wizard. And then the subhead says,
he is positive that an alternating current of 1,000 volts would surely kill a man.
So
can't buy that kind of publicity. Anti-publicity.
Edison tried to buy it, but in this case, he didn't have to buy it. And in fact, Kemmler loses the case. The judge says the state can execute him in the electric chair. And so the day comes. It's August 6th, 1890. Kemmler gets woken up at 5 a.m., puts on a suit, has a black and white check bow tie. They shave part of his head so that they can put an electrode there, to make contact with the skin. At the last minute, actually, the warden has to cut through Kemmler's shirt tail so that their electrode can make contact with his back. And Kemmler seems collected. The warden seems nervous, actually. The warden seems kind of shaky, but Kemmler is collected. Kemmler actually says to the warden, take your time, do it right. And the warden attaches the electrodes, straps Kemmler's arms to the chair. He actually puts this sort of leather mask on Kemmler's face that straps his head back into the chair. And then the warden says, goodbye, William, which is the signal. It's the signal for someone to turn on the power to the chair. And they do that. They turn on the power. Kemmler's body goes rigid, just like a bronze statue, somebody said. And they leave the power on for 17 seconds. And there's a doctor standing right there monitoring it. And he says, he's dead. That's enough. And they turn off the power. Power goes off. And then they look at Kemmler and they see that he's still breathing. He's not dead. People start screaming. Someone faints. So they turn on the power again. And this time they leave it on not for 17 seconds, but for several minutes. It burns Kemmler's flesh. You can smell it, apparently, in the room. His clothes catch on fire and somebody puts it out. And then finally, they turn off the power. And this time, Kemmler is dead. And that dentist who invented the electric chair was, in fact, one of the witnesses, was in the room at the time. And after it was over, what he said was, quote, we live in a higher civilization from this day. Kemmler has been executed, and in fact, his death is on the front page of newspapers around the country, all talking about how horrible it was. But The news doesn't have the effect on public opinion that Edison frankly hoped it would, right? Everybody doesn't suddenly say, oh, we can't have AC power. It's obviously too dangerous. They basically just said, oh, yeah, do not strap me into a chair and run 1,000 volts of AC power through my body.